a lot of people on social media, because the supposed, or maybe it's been proven, I'm not sure yet, but the supposed identity of the mass shooter has been shown, and it is it's a Mexican man, a Hispanic man. I don't know his last name. His last name is Garcia, and he's allegedly been tied to white supremacist groups. Which, by the way, apart from him being, Mexican, we've had so many mass shooters who've been proven to have ties in with white nationalists and white supremacists thinking, being sympathizers to those things. But the controversy right now is that a lot of people are like, well, if he's Mexican, or if he's Latino, or if he's Latino or Hispanic in general, but if he's Mexican, how can he be white supremacist? Why would he have white supremacist leanings? Okay, so first of all, white supremacy and white nationalism is an ideology. Anyone can have it, even if it doesn't make sense. People don't make sense, so let's just get that out the way right now. It doesn't make, but Mexican is not and has never been a race. I don't understand conservatives. I don't understand people. Like, before we get to the phrase white pass, before we even get to that, do you realize that the United States was a British colony? What was Mexico? What was Mexico? It was a Spanish colony. The Spanish were white Christian colonizers, just like the British. Are the French not white historically because they speak French and not English? Mexican. There's really your answer. Now I'm going to over-explain it. I can't even get mad, but like, the United States was built around the interaction of three main races during the colonial period. The indigenous peoples, enslaved Africans, European colonizers. Okay? The red, white, and black. Or blues. Niggas made blues. Whatever. However color code way you need to memorize it. Right? Latin America was the same exact way. Latin America was the same exact way, except swap out the British and the French with predominantly Portuguese and Spanish colonizers. Mexico was a Spanish colony. It had its own racial caste system, very similar to the United States having its own racial caste system, with African descent people on the bottom and indigenous peoples, usually second to bottom, and mixed race with European descent people below white. And that's usually kind of the order of how it went. This Garcia guy, again, that's a long-winded way of me telling you that there are and have always been white Latinos and white Hispanics. I'm not talking about, what Americans want to, I mean, Hispanics and Latinos that were considered white back in their own Hispanic and Latino countries. Again, Spanish and Portuguese colonies, just like North America's concept of whiteness came from the British, Hispanic and Latino people's concept of whiteness came from the Spanish and the Portuguese. Okay? It's not rocket science. It's just whiteness, but it speaks a different white language. It's all whiteness. But again, yeah, there are white Hispanics and white Latinos. Mexico only just recently recognized its African descent population. They just recognized Afro-Latinos back in 2015. That's a whole other conversation too. But yeah, the concept of whiteness, the concept of white Christian genetic and cultural superiority was not a British thing. It was a European thing. It was a thing that the Spanish founded and pushed, and so did the Portuguese, and so did the French, and so did the Germans, and the German colonies in West Africa. That was long before the German Holocaust of European Jews, etc., etc. It was a European thing. It was not only a British thing. I don't understand how people can't figure that out yet. That's why you have Latinos and Hispanics from Mexico or just any Latin American country that come to the United States and they look white because they are white, but they're not considered white in the United States. But that doesn't mean that they're not considered white back at home. They are considered white back at home. Again, but let me get to something I was going to say. Okay, so he's white Hispanic, he's white Latino, he's white Mexican. Again, all very real things, have been real things since the Spanish and the Portuguese showed up like hoodlums in South America, just like the British showed up like hoodlums in North America. It's been a thing. But let's just say this Garcia guy is specifically not white Hispanic or white Latino. Let's just say he's not that. Let's say he's not white Hispanic. Let's just say he's mestizo. What is mestizo? A mestizo is a person. Again, this is a Spanish or, a Spanish, sometimes used by Portuguese speakers, but a predominantly Spanish origin word. But mestizo is essentially a person of indigenous and white mixed background. There's someone who's a mix of mixed race between indigenous and European. That's it. Okay. Gotcha, Matt. Well, if he's mestizo Mexican, why would he be? Well, I just gave you the answer. If he's mestizo Mexican, if he's a mestizo, there are a lot of mestizo in the identity itself is a person of a mixed European, of a mixed colonizer background. I mean, the whole mestizos in Spanish and Portuguese colonies had a higher standing in the racial hierarchy because they had European heritage. They had usually, Spanish or Portuguese paternal blood, fatherly blood that was not given to an indigenous woman by her free will. Let me just paint that situation for you. But yeah, if he's mestizo, he is partially white, just in the definition of that identity and that word. And this is something I've been aware of since I was little. A lot of mestizos, whether they come from Mexico or other parts of Latin America, when they come to the United States, first of all, a lot of mestizos just look mostly European anyway. Like most of their European, it's a case-by-case thing. It's such a broad umbrella term, mestizo anyway. But a lot of mestizos some are split 50-50 between indigenous and European. Others are more indigenous. Like, you've seen people from Mexico that look straight up indigenous but still identify as mestizo. But then you have some people that look. Then you have some. Let's just keep it to Mexican. But we have some whatever. You have some Hispanics, some Latinos, regardless of whether they be from Mexico, Venezuela, or whatever, that might identify as mestizo. But when you look at them, they look predominantly European. So mestizos just range just from person to person. Some mestizos have more European heritage and thus look more white because they are mostly white, and then some are mostly indigenous, thus they look mostly indigenous. But there are mestizos, whether they be from Mexico or whatever, and I've noticed since I was a kid, when they come up here to the United States or anywhere, really anywhere, again, there are white people, there are white Latinos, white Hispanics all over the place. Anytime, a lot of mestizos will try to for lack of a better term, reproduce, have a family with someone who is fully white or who's predominantly of European descent, whether that means another white Hispanic, another white Latino, or if that means a white North American, a white Canadian, a European person, just to cleanse themselves of their indigenousness, so that their children have even more European features. So their children may not have any indigenous features at all. But mestizos have been doing that. So again, this is a long. I did not want to explain it this way, but yeah, the Garcia guy aligning himself with white nationalism, white supremacist movements, which again, white nationalism and white supremacy is basically the bargain bin, crappy discount version of European Christian colonialism. That's its roots. So yeah, this mestizo Mexican or this white Mexican, both real things for centuries since the formation of Mexico, aligning himself with white nationalism and white supremacy is a very normal thing. It's been a thing, again, since the founding of Mexico. It's nothing new. Indigenous, African, and European made up North America. Those three races made up South America, except those European colonizers were Spanish and Portuguese instead of being British and French. That simple. Peace!